Well, Joel, we're halfway through the FedEx Cup playoffs now, and right now Justin Thomas just picking up where he left off after winning the PGA Championship, and he's having a heck of an end of the summer here.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. The long-running joke of if only they'd play tournaments only in Asia and Hawaii, and then Justin Thomas could win all of them. You can't really say that anymore because the guy just wins and just shoots 63s like crazy. Dropped that 63 on Saturday, which was Sunday, because it was round 3.
Right.
On Sunday. Shot that 8-under round and followed it up with a 66 yesterday on Monday, and the guy has just had an unbelievable year now. I mean, it wasn't just a quick run at the end of last year / early this year. He's picked it right back up with that win at the PGA. Played well at the Northern Trust actually last week too in that T6 finish, and then followed it up with this victory here. 5th victory of the season, has a major title in there, and I mean, it's basically been up until the PGA, it was kind of Jordan Spieth's Player of the Year race to lose, and now I mean Justin Thomas is basically the face of the PGA Tour in terms of hottest player from beginning to end of the season, and no question about it. He's just had one of the best years in recent memory.
And yet, even Monday in Boston, even despite shooting a front 932, it was anything but a lock for him to win that thing, taking the turn.
Yeah, so it was really a great leaderboard on Monday. You had Spieth, who comes out of the gates just absolutely on fire. He's 5 under through 4 holes to start the round, and actually he had birdied the last 2 holes on Sunday. So he had a stretch where he was 7 under through 6 holes, which is like cartoon golf. It's crazy. That's actually what Lexi Thompson did in the Solheim Cup a couple weeks ago, last time we talked. And Spieth actually did that on the back 9 of the British Open on Sunday too, where he had that 5 under through 4 stretch. Unbelievable. And then cooled off, but the back 9's a lot tougher at TPC Boston, so a lot of guys were struggling to make pars. You had Mark Leishman, who shot 30, 6 under in the front 9, followed up with a 40 on the back 9.
Ouch.
Just brutal. But there's some tough holes in there. 11, 12, 14 are really long par 4s, and guys were making bogeys. And, it really looked like Spieth's tournament there after his start and after even early to the back 9. But Thomas made a couple of really key par saves, made a great par putt coming down the stretch on 16 after missing the green on a par 3, and just kind of kept it together. And then before you knew it, he had a 2-shot lead, and then Spieth actually ended up bogeying 18, so it turned into a 3-shot lead, and it was basically his tournament. So just another one for the book for him.
And for Thomas, it really was a question of his putting really bailing out his lack of accuracy off the tee.
Yeah, he putted in that 63. He sprayed it off the tee, no question, which that rough is fairly deep at TPC Boston, but, I mean, when you're holing nearly everything you look at, I think he ended up with, it was 11, it might even have been 12 threes on his card on Sunday, which a par 71 to make that many birdies on par 4s on a course of that length, over 7,200 yards is incredible. And it was pretty much all his putter. He was spraying it off the tee. His iron game was pretty good, but his putting was just out of this world. Basically anything around the hole was in, and he even poured in a couple putts of significant length around like the 50 to 60 foot range, which I think he ended up making over 200 feet of putts on Sunday. You have a guy doing that who hits it as far as Justin Thomas, with playing with that much passion and that much now. I mean, really drawing on the experience that he has because he's won so many tournaments recently. He's got a lot of confidence, and he's tough to beat, no question.
And so now you got Spieth and Thomas. Really, it looks like a 2-man race for the FedEx Cup. They've kind of put a little bit of separation between the two of them and the rest of the field. There's a 27-point difference between the two of them, but Spieth, with those back-to-back runner-up finishes in the first 2 legs of this playoff, has that slim edge right now. Do you think it's one of the two of them that wins this thing overall?
Yeah, because they juice up the points so much going into the FedEx Cup playoffs that you can actually, you can still make up a lot of ground. You got to include Dustin Johnson there after he won, last week, beat Spieth, even though Spieth has gone second, and Dustin Johnson didn't play that well this last weekend. You still got to include him in there. I would say it'll be one of those 3. If any of them were to win this next week is actually a bye week, but the next week in Chicago at the BMW, if any of them were to win that, it'd be almost impossible for somebody else to win unless the other guy were to play really poorly at the Tour Championship and then, one of the other players were to win. So we'll know a lot more after the BMW, of course. But, yeah, I'd definitely say Spieth Thomas or Dustin Johnson. I don't see how it goes any other way.
You mentioned the BMW, September 14th through the 17th, Lake Forest, Illinois. And like you said, the points go up and the field gets smaller.
Yeah, down to 70. It started the FedEx Cup playoffs at 125, went to 100 for Boston last week where they still had a cut, and then it goes to 70 for the BMW. There's no cut, so each player plays all 4 rounds, and then for 1 week later, it goes to the Tour Championship at East Lake down to 30 players, where again there's no cut. And at that point, he's going to be cutting the field by 40 guys. Really, those 40 guys, it's pretty unlikely that anybody outside the top 30 at this point would win the whole thing anyway. But again, you never know. Billy Horschel actually did that a couple years ago, where he came from outside the top 70, ended up winning the entire thing. But if you get hot and win both of them, it could definitely happen. So, like I said, I still would pick Spieth, Thomas, or Dustin. Probably would actually cut Dustin out at this point and pick Spieth or Thomas. But somebody from outside, if they win at BMW, they'll have a chance to get to the FedEx Cup title if they were to win it at East Lake.
One guy that appears to have no chance right now, and a guy who's not even in the top 50 for the first time in 3 years in the FedEx Cup standings, is Rory McIlroy. And the wheels are really falling off for him after he missed the cut in Boston.
Yeah, he came out and said after he missed the cut in Boston that he can't wait for the season to be over.
It's pretty much over, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like, well, he actually he did qualify for the BMW at Chicago, so he's still eligible, and he still, as of now, still will have a tee time in 2 weeks. But the funny part about it is going into the FedEx Cup playoffs, let's rewind back a couple weeks, Rory was saying he was injured. He was actually strongly considering shutting it down for the season. That's when he was interviewed after the PGA. We thought we weren't even going to see Rory again until next year. And given that he had that rib injury and just was not playing that well really overall, it seemed like the right play. And sure, he would have caught a lot of flack had he actually pulled out from the FedEx Cup playoffs, because it doesn't make the PGA Tour look good. Certainly the commissioner would have not, and even his peers on tour would not have probably appreciated it too much. But then again, the guy is actually injured and needs to rehab. But then he decides to come out and play. And now he's played 2 events. He's played very poorly. And now he's saying again, well, I can't wait to shut it down for the year. It's like, well, do one or the other.
Yeah.
At the very least, like just play and shut up, or just bag it for the year. Just hang it up and say you're done. Now I don't know what he'll do. I guess I would expect him to play in 2 weeks, but I just don't understand what is he gaining by playing at this point? He's injured. He's not playing well. He needs to rehab. Why even bother playing if you don't want to be there and you aren't playing well anyway? He needs to do one or the other, and he's kind of in this weird middle ground, and he's certainly not gaining anything.
Well, and the problem seems to be, and we see this happen in other sports, Joel, where physical injury actually can set you back maybe even more mentally when you continue to go out and try to make it happen, and it doesn't work for you. So what could this do to him from a psychological standpoint?
See, that's a good point. I mean, he's still a young player. He has... he has 4 majors to his credit, so he's somebody who should be able to draw on that past experience to get back to the top, or at least close to the top. So I certainly wouldn't, I think it'll take him longer to get there than it probably should because of what you mentioned. But to me, it is something where if he is continuing to push it so hard in the gym, or he's damaging himself physically, he's damaging what appears to be his ribs and his basically his core, his ribs and his back. That's something that it could actually alter his golf swing. And if he has to start to make adjustments with his swing or with his putting stance or something, that could change what has gained him so much success to begin with. And if he starts tinkering with that and questioning what works and what doesn't, he hasn't gained anything. He's actually taken a lot of steps backwards. And yes, that can start to damage your confidence, and then you start to maybe retract on things that you were trying to train yourself to believe, but you end up going backwards. And yeah, I think it will probably take him a while to get back to anywhere close to where he was. But it's got to start with a break. There has to be something where he just takes some time off. And if that starts now, and even if he has to wait until, say, February next year, where he takes a good 3, 4, or 5 months off, I think that's really the only logical next step for him.
After the FedEx Cup playoffs, then we go into the President's Cup, and the 10 spots on each roster are set with the captain's picks to come. Any surprises so far?
Yeah, for the U.S. side yesterday, it was really interesting. Charlie Hoffman, who has been on fire at the latter part of the summer, seemingly had the 10th spot locked up but did not play well these last 2 weeks. And Kevin Chappell, who didn't play exceptionally well at TPC Boston but played just good enough, actually had the 10th spot, what appeared to be locked up, then fell out of the 10th spot when a couple players made a run up, because the points, of course, are based on your finish. So if a guy, if there's guys out on the course still that are finishing after you've played, of course, it can affect the number of points. Kevin Chappell was in, he was out, he was in, he was out. Well, next thing you know, they interviewed him after his round. He was kind of dejected, and he said, basically, I'll let my resume from the last 2 years speak for itself. Hopefully I'll get a captain's pick. Well, next thing you know, they show Russell Henley on TV, who had bogeyed 16 and 17, and Henley, by doing that, fell behind Chappell, and Chappell jumped back up into the 10th spot, ended up getting the 10th spot by less than 1 point over Charlie Hoffman.
Wow. So
that was kind of a crazy story there. So I'd say Chappell is a little bit of a surprise, again, the 10th spot there. The others are certainly no surprise. There's a lot of good young talent on the team. I mean, Team USA definitely go in as a heavy favorite. It's not only in the U.S., but, I mean, you have world number one, Dustin Johnson, then Spieth, Thomas, Ricky, Koepka, Patrick Reed, Matt Kuchar, Daniel Berger has been playing extremely well. So really, really like the U.S.'s chances here. And Mickelson, who has been on every U.S. Cup team since, forever, very likely will get a captain's pick, especially after his T6 finish in Boston last week. So he'll be a good locker room guy, somebody to kind of coach and, make sure that the rookies are comfortable and have the right mindsets and everything. And I think Team USA is really in a good spot going into the end of the month.
Jersey City, New Jersey for the President's Cup this year. Let's talk about next season. We know the PGA Championship is changing on the calendar, but what about some other possible changes on the PGA Tour?
Yeah, so next year we do know that the calendar will actually mostly be the same. So for 2019, looking a year ahead of that, we have some big changes on the horizon, definitely. We have the PGA in 2019 moving to May. We have the Players' Championship all but confirmed to go to March. And so what you'll have then is 5 straight months of a major-like tournament. The Players will remain a non-major, but it's a huge tournament, and it'll have its own month. So it'll go Players, Masters, PGA, U.S. Open, British Open, and all in consecutive months from March through July. And then after that, you'll have the FedEx Cup playoffs. Sounds like they're going to eliminate the bye week, which I think is good. I guess when it's in September, like right now, it makes sense that they have it because this coming weekend, everybody's talking about the NFL.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I mean, golf certainly will get overlooked. And I've always said that. I like what they've done to get more players to play in September to get, focus on golf and the playoffs and everything. But when it comes down to it, everybody's thinking football come September. So there's no question that they need to make some changes. So they're going to eliminate the bye week. They're also talking about trimming back from 4 FedEx Cup events to 3, so you'd only have 3 events, and then moving up the finish to either the weekend before Labor Day or over Labor Day weekend. I like the Labor Day weekend approach because finishing on Labor Day Monday, there's really nothing going on. You can kind of own the sports calendar on Labor Day Monday, and then boom, end with a bang, and then that's it right there, and then the NFL, of course, starts the very next weekend. So it sounds like that might happen, but what that'll mean is some of the quote-unquote regular season events from January through August will have to get moved to the fall. One of them might be the Valspar in March, which is in Tampa Bay area. Might have to go to the fall, and then a couple others as well. But I think they'll figure all that out. It should be good for golf. It should put even more focus on the FedEx Cup playoffs. I think it'll be a good thing, and it sounds like it'll be announced fairly soon, too. So it's some exciting stuff on the horizon for sure.